Welcome. We bid you welcome to what is this? The third episode of the Five Count. Gotta love that. John Clouser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dead, with my faithful co-captain, John, the Music Nut. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, my brother.
Oh,
How
man.
about you?
Man, I'll tell you. I'm hoping the weather holds out so we don't get a thunderstorm that knocks the power out like it did before we got onto this thing. So keep your fingers crossed. But
That's right. Before we get
last
thunderstruck. Na
Yes.
na 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 na. Na.
There you go. There you go. Or I'm sure we can probably come up with some other good lightning songs like Ozzy, I think, had a good one, When the Lightning Strikes Again or something like that. That was him. But anyway, so last week we started talking about season 2 of Dark Side of the Ring. And I realized at some point, it's like, you know what? This season is so good. We got to do a part 2. And this time we got to hit the heavy hitters,
That's right.
and because you can't talk about Dark Side of the Ring season 2 without talking about Benoit, without talking about Owen Hart, which that's 3 episodes of the remainder of the season, because we covered 5 episodes last week. And then the Brawl for All and Dr. Dave Schultz. And so, John, I'm going to let you kick it off with we'll just kind of go episode by episode. So whichever one you want to pick first, and you want to throw out, let's have some fun. Let's recap the season. So go. I'll let you start off with whichever episode you want to pick.
Thank you, John. I'll start with one of the heavy hitters. We'll start with Owen Hart.
Okay.
That was the finale of the season 2. And before I get into this, this season meant a lot to us. And I'm not just talking about John and I. I'm talking about millions of wrestling fans because
Oh
when
yeah.
we're airing these shows, we couldn't do anything. There was a pandemic. So when I was so looking forward to these shows, like a lot of these shows that are coming on now, I catch the replays because I can't catch them on Tuesday night at 10. This was must see television
Oh
when
yeah.
there wasn't when you couldn't leave your house. So this this was a fantastic season, but it meant even more to me personally, and I think a lot of people, because we were shut down and we couldn't do anything. So we were looking for things to get into, things that brought us joy. And I thought this season they really hit it out of the park. And the last episode was about the wonderful talent that we lost too soon in Owen Hart. Yes, goodbye, Owen. May 23, 1999.
I'll just say, for those who are wondering, this is I recorded a lot of pay-per-views back in the day. And this is and I gave pretty much all of them away except this one. This is the original Over the Edge pay-per-view as it happened on May 23rd, 1999. So we'll get more into that, but just had to explain that part.
Exactly. Yes. What a talent Owen Hart was. Oh, one of my favorite matches of all time was WrestleMania 10, Owen Brett. We always hear about the ladder match with Ramon and Michaels, and that was great too. But you want to see a clinic, Owen Brett. That was fantastic.
Yes,
I
it
was
was.
a I was a Brett guy, but I loved Owen too. I loved that whole storyline, the young one trying to get out of the young brother trying to get out of the older brother's shadow. They did
Mm-hmm.
that to perfection,
Yes.
and they put on a clinic for the ages. Is that like the best first match of a pay-per-view ever? I mean, the only one I can even think of I would put in there would be like Jushin Thunder Liger against Flying Brian Pillman back in
Oh.
'92. That was a
Ooh.
fantastic match.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's
Wow.
what. Yeah, but Owen Brett was amazing, and Owen was better in the high flying moves. Owen may have been more of a natural talent than Brett. I mean, and that's saying a lot because Bret Hart was again an amazing storyteller in the ring, but Owen was sensational athlete. He was just they called him a prodigy in this show. He was.
He was.
He was. I mean, when he was first as the Blue Blazer in the late 80s, he was only like 21, 22 years old. I mean, he was one of the best pure wrestlers around. This show, The Last Days of Owen Hart is called, talks about what happened in that horrible accident that led to his death, which was, I mean, what um, Owen's family went through, particularly Martha and Oj. And Martha, I think I agree 100% with what Martha did. You lost your husband, father of your children. She went after the WWE. She went after the people that made the gear that hung him up in before he was going to fly into the ring. I mean, that was no responsibility. Trying to do things on the cheap to save a buck.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off to this day that we lost a great man and a great talent. And so there's a lot that goes on there. But and what was going on through the minds of people on that show? They continued to show. Should they have continued to show? That's a question we'll be asking forever.
Yeah.
It talks a great deal about Owen the man. Owen was a fantastic talent, but he was a family man first and foremost. And supposedly one of the great ribbers in wrestling too. I mean,
Goodness. Those stories are legendary.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So this was very well done. Yes, there's a tragic ending, which is the par for the course for this series most of the time.
Yeah.
But I thought as an episode, this was must-see television. And it's a hard watch to this day. I'm glad that Martha rose above and formed a foundation in Owen's name. That helps children and less fortunate. God bless her. I'm glad Oj and I forget Owen's daughter's
Athena.
Athena, thank you. She wasn't on too much, but she was great. She was great on this as well. You had everyone that was involved with this. I mean, you saw what was going on. He was teaming up. He was teaming with Owen. I'm sorry, Jeff Jarrett at that.
Yeah. He and Jarrett were teaming. Yeah.
And they were another thing they went into how Owen was always saying no to the controversial angles back then. They wanted to do an angle where he was cheating on his wife with Deborah McMichael, and Owen turned it down flat. I mean, Owen's like, no, family's too important to me. That's right. It ain't all about the money.
Right.
So, I mean, I thought they did an excellent job with this episode. Top to bottom, spectacular episode. John, I know you could go into greater depths on this than I can.
Oh, I mean,
could you imagine if Jeff and Deborah were on this episode?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know,
and Jeff's still pissed about this.
Oh, I bet he is. I bet he is. You know, as I watched this episode, you know, when Martha goes into the stuff from the trial and she pulls out the clip.
That's scary.
That is, oh my gosh. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You know, are you serious if that's what they used? You know, the more you heard about how that got put together, the more upsetting it becomes, because it's just unnecessary. And it really makes, you know, it really adds the fuel to the fire to the question, should they have gone on with the show? It's certainly, they should have shut it down right there and then. So. You know, because, you know, there was negligence involved. You know, crime scene, I don't know if that would be the right way of putting it, but it was definitely something that needed to be investigated. And you know, they made that terrible decision to go on with the show, because here's the bad thing. Those wrestlers were distracted with the thought of what happened.
They're a fraternity. They're a family.
That's not, when that gets in your head, that's hard to, you got to really be careful, because you might, hurt somebody. You might hurt somebody else in the ring while you're going on and doing with what you got to do. So you already have that terrible distraction. I loved all of the earlier stuff that they were showing with him in Stampede. I thought that all that was great. Fun story. I can remember seeing Owen as the Blue Blazer when he first came into the WWF,
right?
All those years ago. And it was for a taping, I think in Maryland, where I lived. And he did that thing at the top rope, and he did that backflip off, and he fell. He tripped. He did when he did the backflip and he landed in the mat, he lost his footing and he fell backwards. So not to be poking fun,
right?
But it's a memory that stuck with me, all those years. So I remembered seeing Owen as a Blue Blazer. I don't recall if I ever saw Owen outside of that. If I saw him, prior to that, I can't really remember. All some of the different wrestling cards I've been to, the memory gets a little faded, and I just can't remember who's on what. But I do remember that one Blue Blazer thing where he did the back flip off and he landed in the ring and he tumbled backwards. But and I think on TV they kind of edited that to, you didn't see that. But all my memories of, all the memories that they talk about in the show were, it's all on here. When you hear Jim Ross saying, well, we're going to go to this promo and we got some big problems here. Like, what? And then you cut to Jim Ross with him doing this he's having to explain what's going on. I would not have wanted to been in Jim Ross's shoes. No way. That was, you talk about balls of steel. That took some balls of steel just to be able to present something, and then here comes Jerry Lawler. And even then I thought, oh man, this isn't good, because you could tell Jerry just looked white as a ghost.
Yes.
And he spoke in his normal, not Jerry Lawler character voice, just normal Jerry Lawler voice. Yeah, it doesn't look good at all. That's all he said. Kudos to the WWF for not showing anything that was going on in the ring. Thank goodness that didn't happen on the pay-per-view. I think if it had happened on pay-per-view, the feed probably would have been cut, and they probably would not have shown the rest of the night. So thank goodness there was a promo going, so at least the television audience and the pay-per-view audience didn't have to see it, and the lights were out in the arena, so it looked like a lot of people didn't actually see what happened. So they probably should be thankful for that, I guess, if there's anything to be thankful for out of this tragic event. They didn't announce it in the arena, but they did announce it on TV that he had died. And again, not something I would have wanted to have heard, or have had to do. But then, so they go back to the action, and they cut to Jeff Jarrett and Deborah, and they're having to cut a promo. They're carrying on with the show. Deborah is beside herself. She's trying to do this promo, and she can't even get the words out. Jeff goes in and says, "No, shut up, woman. Let me do the talking here." He breaks character for saying, "Owen Hart, I'm praying for you, brother." And then he goes back and finishes the promo, but you could tell he is visibly upset. And Val Venus and Nicole Bass to carry that part of the show on with them. I don't know how any of them did it. I remember, again, when you watch the unedited version of this, there's a part where The Rock does this thing where he grabbed the headset and he would do something like he would cut a promo on the headset while he's wrestling. And by the end of it, he says, Owen Hart, we love you, brother. And, and so, but if you watch this now on WWE Network, any reference to Owen, is completely cut out. Even the "we love you, Owen" part from that The Rock says, they even edited that out. So nothing is, you hear none of that stuff. I think even the promo with Jeff and Deborah is not even in there. So it's so much edited out of that thing now, and for good reason. I totally get that, because Martha certainly doesn't want to have that glorified all the time. And I know a lot of wrestlers. Mark Henry was one of them. Said, Martha, it's time. Let him come into the Hall of Fame.
I saw that too. Did they talk about that on the Busted Open show?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I need to go back to check. No. When I saw Mark Henry do that, that was at his Hall of Fame speech.
Okay, you're right. My bad.
That was his Hall of Fame speech, and I remembered seeing that, and I thought, yeah, good luck with that. But I totally understand Martha Nose's reasons. Why should I allow the company that killed my husband or my father to be allowed into their Hall of Fame with a little placard? No, that's never going to happen, and they shouldn't. Hats off to AEW for being respectful of the Owen Hart legacy and career. I think that's, at least they're doing something positive with that, which is good. But yeah, for all those who wish that he would be in WWE's Hall of Fame, as Aerosmith says, dream on, because it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen.
Well put. But yeah, I mean, lack of responsibility and I'm saying
accountability. Accountability was the biggest thing. Yeah.
Excellent. And the question, should the show have gone on? Yes, I always thought it shouldn't have gone on, but how did the wrestlers even perform? With that fraternity they have, how were you able to go out and do your job that soon?
Yeah.
While the wound is still open.
Yeah. It's like, because like one of the guys says, like, you could see where, you could feel where one of the floorboards under the mat was broken from where he landed. So you're having to think about that. And I think some of his blood was on the mat and stuff. So it's like, how do you get that out of your head while you're trying to do these matches? I don't know how many matches it was after that, but again, how could you go on with that mindset of keeping the show going on? I don't know how they did it, but they did.
How about in the episode where Martha and Oj went back to the arena? They wanted to know what happened, and Oj was 7 at this point.
Yeah,
he
was pretty young.
Took them back to where Owen stood before he jumped, before he was supposed to fly, and they stood there, and they relived the last thing Owen saw. And then Owen said, and by the way, Jim Cornette, Jim Ross, Chris Jericho,
fantastic.
Godfather too. Oh yeah, absolutely. They were all fantastic in this episode. Especially Cornette.
Oh gosh, yeah. How, we all talk about how much of Cornette is just this, this really vulgar, filthy mouth kind of guy when he gets on some of his rants. But there's the historian part of him that, and then there is a human part to him that every once in a while does come out. And boy, we saw the human part in Jim Cornette on this episode.
No question. He managed Owen.
Yeah.
When he was with Yokozuna.
With Yokozuna, yeah.
Boy, there's and I say that highly, because that team really showcased Owen's talents.
It sure did.
Yes.
Did.
Yeah. Completely with Martha Hart and her family on this. It's not all about money and trying to make a profit. It's about life. And God bless them for moving on and holding their heads high for
Yep,
for living the way they're living now.
exactly.
And
And it's like and this kind of goes back to the Jimmy Snuka episode from
Mhm.
because I think like Vince wanted to take the trial up to Connecticut, instead of having it in Kansas City there, because of the no
Punitive damages.
punitive damage thing, and so you think it back to the Jimmy Snuka episode, and he wanted to offer the Argentino family $25,000.
Right.
That's all you care about for my sibling's life? Get out of here. And I'm sure Martha probably would have said the same thing. But yeah, a very touching episode. A very anger inducing episode at times,
Yeah.
but at the same time very emotional, because it certainly brought me back to those days during that night when I was watching. I didn't watch the entire thing live. I saw part of it, and then I had to go to work because I was working night shift at the time. And then I found out later that he had passed away, and then I watched the rest of it. But yeah, rest in peace, Owen Hart. And yeah, that was a strong episode. So
No doubt about it.
well, let's lighten the mood a little bit. We talked about how human Jim Cornette could be in this episode. Well, now we get to see the vulgar antics that Jim Cornette comes out when we talk about the brawl for all.
Yep.
Oh boy. And all of this came out because Vince Russo didn't like JBL, and he wanted to see JBL's rear end get handed to him.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. I remember some of this when it was happening, and I didn't remember so many of the guys getting injured. I forgot some of that stuff. Like Dr. Death got really badly injured, and they were about to do according to Cornette, they were going to do a program with him and Austin, which I had forgotten about. Yeah, but he had just gotten into the WWF at the time. He wasn't in there that long, but he was also getting toward the end of his career too.
Correct. And that's where, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I didn't know how much he would have been able to go after that, but I mean, whatever. I forget the injury he suffered, but it obviously took him out of the ball game for a long time.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. So, so all of that gets thrown out the window. I think Draws got hurt. A few other guys got hurt, and then here comes Bart Gunn shining out of this thing. Bart Gunn? Why Bart Gunn of all people? Hey, it was all unscripted. They let him go at it. I forgot how brutal some of this stuff was. I mean, man, you looked at him and JBL. Boy, when JBL got knocked out by Bart Gunn, it's like you saw the lights go out in JBL, and he just went boop. The lights were on, but nobody was home. He got knocked for a loop hard, and then of course, so you go through all of that, of course, Jim Ross is trying to figure out how to call the dumb thing. And, he knew it was a bad idea. Cornette's already wishing the thing would, the crowd didn't think it was a good idea, so. And then, so they finally thought, well, we got to bring this to a close. So let's do it at WrestleMania and let Bart take on Butterbean. What, minute, 2 minutes, and that thing was over. I forget how long that thing went, but it didn't last long. And then Bart Gunn was gone. He was out of the promotion pretty soon after. But nobody came out smelling good out of that thing. I think even Russo says at the end of the episode, with all that we know about CTE these days, I'm wishing I hadn't even suggested it anymore. I'm like, yeah, no, I think we all wish you did too, because it was a waste of time on television.
Absolutely.
But
okay, well, God, Bart Gunn got the shaft. He got the shaft. It seems like he's in a good place now. He was very good on this episode. He's very calm. He's a full-time electrician, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, he's out of the wrestling business now. He just lives a quiet life, just taking care of business. But he should have got the huge push here, and they said, "Well, we got nothing for you," and then they put him in with a professional boxer.
Yeah.
You put a guy who's never fought professionally or amateur in with, now he fights 4-round fights, but Butterbean is a professional boxer who hits like a truck.
Yeah.
That was punishment, in my opinion. That was punishment for what had happened because he wasn't supposed to win. It was all supposed to be Dr. D. Rest in
Yeah.
peace, I'm sorry, Dr. Death. Rest in peace, Dr. Death, Steve Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I agree a little bit with Russo. I think they brought him in near the end of his career. That part I agree with. They were latching onto that wagon. They were expected to make a lot of money with Steve Williams and Steve Austin, whose real name is Steve Williams.
Exactly.
But I don't know how much longer it would have lasted because Dr. Death had already had a long career and was a legitimate badass, and we can talk about that one day.
Oh yeah.
But dumbass idea. They screwed Bart Gunn. A lot of people got hurt that shouldn't have been. It was just bad all the way around. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe John Bradshaw Layfield had a big mouth. He didn't deserve that.
He didn't deserve that. No.
No, he didn't deserve that. He
No.
was great at getting heat, but I mean, again, you don't. Oh, we're gonna do this because I want to see JBL get put in his place. No.
No.
He could have been hurt permanent.
Oh, sure he could have. Sure he could have.
Bad.
It's just like you say, Bart Gunn got the shaft. It's like how's the old Jerry Reed song go? Nobody got the gold mine in this one.
That's right.
Nobody, because I can't see how this made money for WWE.
Right.
And because if anything, it probably lost them money with everybody getting hurt. And like I said, a lot of wrestlers got the shaft because of it. So yeah, so nobody got the gold mine in this one. So
yeah, horrible idea. And there were a few things Russo. I'll say one thing about Russo. I don't agree with most of the ideas that he had. I could listen to an interview him because he's such a bullshitter that he's entertaining.
Bro.
He's such a, I mean, now I'm a Cornette guy,
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking wrestling now.
Yeah.
Cornette, he said his life is dedicated to pro wrestling. He started out as a photographer when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
This is in his life's blood. So I could understand Jim's dislike of Vince Russo. Okay. But yeah, bad idea all the way around. So made a good episode, but God, these guys got hurt for what?
For a stupid idea. Yeah. So, it's like it's I think it's sometimes you kind of wish you could get a celebrity death match episode with Vince Russo and Jim Cornette.
Oh, that would be fun.
Oh my gosh, just to let those two just kill each other or something, because I think Cornette would almost be open to it. But anyway, there you go. So yeah, Brawl for All. Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
Speaking of Russo, I got to watch that latest episode that's come on. I see he's featured prominently.
Very prominently, yes. Extremely prominently.
Okay. There's something about him, though. He doesn't, he just, I don't know. I'm a Cornette guy. But,
yeah. Well, I mean, you figure he started off as a writer for the WWF magazine. That's how he got in, and then whatever, Vince saw something and got him on the writing for the shows and stuff. And that's the bigger he got, the bigger his head got, the bigger he got backstage, and then that's how he got this Brawl for All thing. So
yeah, and the thing with Vince, I can kind of see getting some fresh blood in there. Coming in with some ideas, but we could talk about some of the bad ideas.
Oh,
although Raw for All was the worst one because a lot of people got hurt.
Oh yeah.
But oh geez. Anyway, okay, I'll stop on that.
Yeah. You're
We'll
good.
we'll talk about Dr. D. David Schultz and the slap heard around the world. I remember when this happened. I
Yeah.
watched that 2020 when it happened. And
Wow. I wasn't watching that one. I wasn't watching 2020, but I remember
I was
when it
actually
happened.
I was watching 2020 back then.
Wow.
I was 13, but I used to love watching 2020. Hugh Downs was great. I loved the shows on there. And I remember seeing John Stossel on a lot of different episodes
Yeah.
before.
I think he do a lot of like consumer stuff.
Consumer Reporting.
Yeah.
Like a David Horowitz was doing that with his show Fight Back. That was
Right.
John Stossel's big thing.
Yeah.
But so this episode we get Stone Cold before Stone Cold in Dr. D. David Schultz.
Boy, yeah. That's a good comment. That's a good correlation right there. Yeah.
Thanks. Like when I was a kid, you see these big, scary wrestlers. There were only two guys that really scared the F out of me. One of them was Paul Orndorff, because that guy looked like he could destroy anybody, and he had a temper to go with it. And Dr. D. David Schultz. So they were scary guys. I mean, to this day, you're like, I wouldn't want to mess with this guy, right? So so they talk about the slap, and this is what gets me. Hulk Hogan puts a front face lock on Richard Belzer right before WrestleMania 1, and his career goes on, and they jump on him because he's on fire at this point.
Oh yeah.
They're about to sell a pay-per-view which Vince had put a lot of money into it, and it took off. And then Vince rode Hulk Hogan to the promised land, and they made a lot of money there.
Yeah.
They just
Another one who got the shaft.
Another one who got the shaft. You could have made so much money with him.
Oh, absolutely.
As a legitimate badass.
Yes.
And him and Hogan were friends, and they talk a lot about this. How Hogan was sleeping on Dr. D's couch in his apartment when he was in the AWA.
Yeah.
So Hogan gave him the shaft too. Yeah, I'm glad that Dr. D was smart. He became a professional bounty hunter later in life, and a very good one.
A very good one at that. Yeah.
And I mean, he didn't let it get him down. I mean, he's still out there. He's living his life and making money, and God bless him for it.
Yeah, God bless him for it.
And the wrestling business gave him the shaft.
Yeah.
And Stossel he milked that for all it could. I mean, it's nice to see that he's doing well now. He's still looking good and all that.
Yeah.
He milked that.
Oh, he certainly did. He certainly did. But he still harbors a lot of bitterness towards Dr. D. You can tell it in that episode.
Oh my gosh.
Still, when he says, yeah, F you, David Schultz, at the end of the thing, I'm like, whoa.
1984. That happened in 1984. He slapped you twice. And as Jim Cornette correctly said, he just did that. He didn't put his weight into it.
No. You imagine if he put his weight into it?
Oh my gosh.
But
it could have been a hell of a lot worse for John Stossel.
But you
job as he did on that show. But
absolutely. But you mentioned the Hogan Belzer thing. Okay, so now one thing that Hogan did do was he did apologize. I think he apologized on that show. I don't think he apologized sometime like right after, because I think he genuinely felt bad about that, because I don't think he expected Belzer to literally have passed out from the front face lock, and then when he just let him go, he just fell to the floor like a sack of potatoes. You hear that thud on the floor. I'm like, yeah, you probably could have been a little gentler letting him down with that. Instead of he just dropped him literally. But I think Hogan did go on, and I think he did apologize for that, which I don't think you got that from Dr. David Schultz.
Oh no, he didn't.
But so maybe that's why Hogan got off the hook a little bit. But I don't know. But Yeah. Yeah. Dr. D I mean, especially like they showed that clip of him and his family, and he's,
Not his family, which you find out.
yeah, and just how he was treating this family. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But yeah, I remember some of those vignettes, man. That was brutal. But yeah, another one who got the shaft, unfortunately. But
They
you
weren't
know,
my guns. They weren't my family.
oh no, but it's like that's what. Hey, yeah, you blur if you when you blur those lines sometimes, But there you go. But so talking about lines that were not blurred, let's talk about the heaviest hitter of them all on this one, and it was a two-parter.
Yes.
The Chris Benoit story. Um, First half deals with his relationship with Eddie Guerrero and leading up to the passing of Eddie Guerrero. So, I can't stand Vicky Guerrero, the character, but I loved Vicky in this episode, in this whole thing. She just, um, she definitely peels all the curtains back, and she lets you into the personal side of Eddie, of her and Eddie's relationship, and the friendship of the sisterhood and the brotherhood on the road. So she just was absolute gold in this episode. Chavo, gold, just wonderful. Chris Jericho, again, gold. Here,
Absolutely.
he says, if you think I'm just glorifying this, think again. Just turn it off now. That Chris Benoit was my friend, and he was my brother, and we got to do this. So the first half of the episode, you get all this wonderful footage of Pegasus Kid and Black Tiger was those early days of the Benoit Guerrero rivalries, and just how amazing they were in the ring, and all that story that just weaves up until Eddie's passing. Of course, the WrestleMania where Benoit wins the belt, and here comes Eddie, and you get this beautiful scene of the we finally made it, brother, and all this kind of stuff. And then, of course, all this, of course, all the trials and tribulations Eddie had with with his drug use and his addictions and stuff like that. Of course, you weave the story in, prior to that with Woman and Benoit, getting in that angle where all of a sudden art is imitating life, and you get that heated rivalry going on with him and Kevin Sullivan, which, man, I would love to have heard more of Kevin Sullivan in this episode, but unfortunately he didn't want to talk. He wouldn't talk about that whole thing. So, but my goodness, when I can't even imagine when Eddie passed away. I remember watching. I was at a friend's house. I was watching I was about to watch a TNA pay-per-view. I can't remember which one it was, but there was a graphic that came on the TV before they started the pay-per-view, and saying how much of a tribute this was to Eddie Guerrero, who passed away. And me and my buddy just looked at each other and goes, "What? We didn't know. We hadn't heard yet at that point." So we figured, well, heck with TNA, we're watching it. So, or maybe he was recording it. So we went to his computer, we got on the internet, and sure enough, oh my gosh, we were dumbfounded. But you know, here you see Chris Benoit, the person who you never saw him like this before. Chris Benoit was always that stoic, very business, very, purpose driven kind of thing. And, you know, and then to see Chris Benoit, and literally his face is just melting off of him because of all the tears. He did not handle Chris or Eddie's passing at all. I mean, that's all we can really say about it. He did not take Eddie's passing well at all, and I don't know if that just the mental health from there just continued to spiral out of control that much further, or if it was steroids, if it was this, if it was that, who knows, but that was, I still think back to that, and every time I think of that, and I just see Chris Benoit and just the tears that are just in the look of anguish on his face, and it's like that's a deep-seated pain that he is letting out with this type of stuff that you never saw that kind of pain from a wrestler before. The closest I'd ever seen anything like that was Triple H during the Owen tributes.
Oh yes,
that was hard to watch. China's like she's holding it together really well, but Triple H, he was losing it. He was having a hard time getting through that. But so yeah, the first half of that episode was hard because we all loved Eddie. If anybody said they didn't like Eddie Guerrero, the wrestler, the character, that you just ain't a wrestling fan. That's all I got to say about that. All the absolute classics he would put on. It's just you can't not be a fan of wrestling if you don't like Eddie Guerrero.
Agreed. It was everything that was great about wrestling. And then when the Latino heat angle, he was so hysterical in that. Not only showing that he was a great, yeah, there you go. Not only was he a great performer in the ring, he had the charisma outside the ring as well. One of the best.
One of the best. One of the best, and of course him and China and the Mammy, the original Mammy.
You're right.
But all due respect to Rhea, sorry, China was the original Mammy here. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that was so off the top of your head, like what was like one of your favorite Eddie matches that you can think of off the top of your head?
Oh gosh, Dean Malenko at ECW.
Those were classics, absolute barn burners.
The best ones. I mean, to me, that was when he was at his lights out best. And he was great in WCW and WWFE as well. But in ECW, he was a machine. And then he had the perfect compliments there, particularly with Malenko. Malenko is fantastic performer, but he was like Chris Benoit. He was stoic. He was business-like. They called him the man of 1,000 holes. It was true.
Mm-hmm.
And Malenko was very good in this episode as well.
Yes, he was.
He was fantastic in this episode, as was his wife. But for me, it's always going to be Eddie and Dean.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, there's just Eddie and Ray always put on great stuff too.
Yes.
Even Eddie, when Eddie beat Brock Lesnar, some of the wars that Eddie and JBL would do, especially the one where he almost bled half his body out. But yeah, those matches with Malenko and ECW and any of that stuff he did in ECW it's just absolute classic. So we get to the end of the episode now, and we get to the day of the event in, I think it was Corpus Christi, and Benoit's not shown up. So, which goes into the second half. So now we get into the wellness checks, and they find out, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Now, wasn't the neighbor that said that they found Daniel first?
I believe the sheriff.
The sheriff or the neighbor, they went in together or something. They took the dog. I think the neighbor took the dogs.
Okay.
But then, I think it was Daniel that was found first.
Daniel was found first. That's true.
And then they found Nancy, and then they found Chris. and then just hearing the details of it just sends
Yeah.
chills down my spine thinking about it. The Bible placed next to Daniel, next to Nancy. Um, I, it just, I don't know. I just have no words because I had heard about all this stuff, but just like when you hear it being described, and you just can't put any words into this. It was just, I can't imagine the scene. It was that had to be one of the most horrific scenes, to have seen, have to witness. And I'm sure those guys, that kind of stuff. I don't know how policemen do that, especially if they work homicide. How do you
Yeah.
how do you get those images out of your head when you see what's a murdered body like that, or a dead body like this? And poor Daniel, I mean, he was totally the innocent bystander in all this. And there was no reason for this, you know. I mean, I get maybe there was stuff going on with him and Nancy. I don't know, but even still, how does one get driven to that? Like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm glorifying Chris by any stretch of the imagination, because I loved Chris Benoit, the wrestler.
Me too.
But Chris Benoit, the person, and what happened in his last days, that part is very, very hard to separate. But yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. There was a lot of things going on, but he killed his family, and that's really hard on David.
Oh, poor David. I mean, that guy's
Oh
never
my
going to
God.
get a break out of life.
Yeah.
He'll never be able to get into the wrestling business because of his
Right.
likeness and his name.
Right.
So he's got those strikes against him. Yeah, I feel bad. I felt bad for David. Worst of
Yes.
all, you talk about Daniel being the innocent bystander. Poor David. He had nothing. He wasn't even there, and yet he's
Yeah.
got to live with this for the rest of his life.
And this had to be really hard for David to relive this, as well as Nancy's sister.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, God bless Chris Jericho for getting them back together in life.
Yeah.
Because they were both hearing that the other didn't want to speak to them, and that wasn't so.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you could say, CTE and what he went through with Eddie and all. He killed his family.
At the end of the day, he still killed his family.
Yeah.
There's no way of justifying anything that he did. And I thought bringing Chris Nowinski into the second half, I thought was good, because it did talk about the CTE and all that stuff. But here again, you're trying to justify it, and there is no way of justifying it,
Yeah.
and there again, I think, and here again, so let's talk about the events after. So,
oh my gosh.
So the next night on Raw, they canceled the event, and they have a tribute show, because at that point the details hadn't been coming out yet. Well, then the next night on ECW TV on Sci-Fi, then that's when all the details starts coming out. And then Vince makes the point about saying, in light of what has been heard and talked about, you will never hear the name Chris Benoit mentioned on this program or any other programming ever again. So he becomes, he who shall not be named. And a good example of that is like Royal Rumbles. They talk about, I like at one time that was like, Michael Cole said, and there were two people who went bell to bell with the Royal Rumble, and they mentioned like Rey Mysterio did it.
Yeah.
for the non-wrestling, for the not so clued in wrestling people, well, who's the other? Well, yeah, you're not going to, Chris Benoit did it, but you ain't going to hear his name mentioned on programming.
Right.
So that's out the window. So those accomplishments all are down the drain because, because of what he did. But, I think hats off to the WWE for scrapping that terrible angle they were doing with the Mr. McMahon character. Because
Yes.
you remember what happened with him like a week before that?
Refresh my memory.
The week before that happened with Benoit was when he gets into the limo and he slams the door shut in the limo and the limo blows up.
Oh yeah.
And so they realized, yeah,
I do
that was in
remember
bad
that.
taste, and we're not going to do that. we're that never, you never saw any of that happen. So that they because like Vince says this in the beginning of that tribute show, which I don't even know if you can see that on WWE Network. I think that's probably not even on there anymore. So
Right.
if you find that, you probably have to find a YouTube version of it. But he talks about how that, but in light of what happened with Chris Benoit, that he was found dead, that we felt that angle was in bad taste, so we're not going to pursue that. Well, however, I don't remember how they rectified all that, but how they brought it back. But yeah, that was like a week. I think it was like a week before he gets in that big stretch limo and blows up. So
I remember that. I remember that now. Oh wow.
yeah. So he's because you always see those images of him walking down the aisle by the wrestlers, and I think it was Joey Mercury or it was one of those wrestlers, and he was trying not to laugh or smile or whatever, and I think he got released after that too. I can't remember who it was, but trying to keep a straight face, a stoic face as he was walking out, leaving the arena and whatever. But yeah, that was all the bad taste stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into any speculations about what could have happened. I think the police did what they could as far as the whole investigation of it all, and I think like I said, there's no way you can justify Chris Benoit the man for what he did. I will still always forever love his matches, like the ones he had with Kevin Sullivan in WCW. I even remember the tribute match he had with Bret Hart in WCW after
Oh, yeah.
Owen passed away. I
Awesome
remember,
match.
that was an awesome match. So, he had lots of great matches, lots of memorable moments, but you just can't take it away what he did. So if anybody should get noticed out of that, I think Nancy should get some kind of
That's where I
recognition.
was going.
She needs, I think if anybody should be in the WWE Hall of Fame, I think it should be Nancy. Whether they ever will or not, I don't know. But somehow she needs to be recognized. But I don't know how they could put her in as a woman. Doesn't have to say Nancy Benoit, or you could say Nancy Toffolini, I think is what her maiden name was. Do it that way. But again, how do you separate what happened to her from the Chris Benoit thing? Yeah, I don't see that. I sad to say I don't see it ever happening.
I don't know.
At least in WWE anyway.
Yeah. And Chris Jericho had said that too. I think she should be in as woman, only just because the career she already had before Chris, before she went with Chris Benoit, and when Kevin Sullivan booked his own divorce.
Oh yeah. Oh, that stuff with her and Chris and Kevin Sullivan back in Florida, the whole satanic cult thing. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
But then I don't know if you remember how we first see her in WCW. I don't know if you remember this.
I do, as Robin Green. When she was Rick Steiner's biggest fan. That's how I saw Woman.
Yep. And then where does she go from there? That's when she pulls off the layers. She becomes woman, and she manages Doom.
Yep, she managed Doom.
Yeah, yeah. There's a good one for you, Ron Simmons and Butch Reed.
Yep.
Tag team with the masks, those goofy masks on.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's how because I wasn't seeing Florida Championship Wrestling at that time, so I didn't see all that stuff. I read about it, but I didn't
Me
see
too.
it.
Right.
But yeah, seeing her coming into WCW was classic. And then the stuff she would do with the Sandman and in ECW,
Mhm.
some of that stuff was off the charts too. So
And then later on, she was with Ric Flair in WCW.
yep, she did the Ric Flair stuff with her, and wasn't Elizabeth in there somewhere
Yeah, they
somehow?
were both there at the same time,
Yeah.
and they were
So
both together with Flair.
yeah. So she has a lot of memorable things where she did. Um, so yes, she should get recognized somehow.
Absolutely.
It's just going to be such a delicate subject how they approach it. Especially in the WWE. Like I said, I don't see the WWE doing it. I could see maybe the Cauliflower Club doing it,
Absolutely.
or something along that line, maybe. But I just don't see WWE even doing that, which it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is.
So,
But we had a happy ending there at the end, and
oh, godly, that ending is a tearjerker
yeah,
when David and Nancy's sister's name, I can't think of her name now off the top of my head, but when they have that reunion and they're going to the AEW show, and they're just it's just wonderful to see that. I don't know if they still have that relationship yet. I hope they still do. Um, God bless them for that. I think it was wonderful. So yeah, that was a beautiful ending to that. If there was anything beautiful to come out of that episode, that was it. So
it was very hard to watch. Her
yeah,
name was Sandra.
Sandra. Yeah, that's right,
Yes.
Sandra. If you're watching, Sandra, I apologize for forgetting your name, but you rocked on that episode. If you ever see this,
Yeah, all all the best
yeah,
to you, and
absolutely,
all the best to you and your family, and all the best to David Benoit
yeah,
and his family and friends and their extended families as well.
yep,
And and again, as John pointed out, everyone did a great job on this episode. I thought the Malenkos were great on here. Chris Jericho was wonderful. Javo Jr. as well. I mean, they were all great. And Chris Harvard, Chris Nowinski.
yeah,
He's always great in these roles, and I think I give him a lot of credit for going into the field that he did, going into studying CTE.
yeah,
We said how we feel about it, how we feel about what happened is how we feel, but I do respect Chris for going into this field and moving on from wrestling after what had happened to him, and then
yeah,
making a positive impact on society.
yeah. Yeah, because think about this. We're Steelers fans, and one of the most beloved Steelers of all time, had CTE. I'm talking about Mike Webster. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
you know, and the stories that surrounded Mike Webster are just. You want to talk? That's another sad story right there. With what happened with him and just how his life just went down the drain. They mentioned that other guy that led the police on a high speed chase, and then the car flips over and it just blows up. I forget which player that was, but it all seems to fall back on CTE, which football's a hard sport too, and I know they try to do their best to put all the concussion protocols and different things like that. So I do applaud the bigger promotions to, okay, we need to stop with the chair shots to the head. That's got to stop. So because now when you watch some of those now, like I can think of two that come to mind right off the top of my head. Well, three, and two of them involve The Rock. All right. When The Rock hits Shamrock right in the face, the countless unprotected shots against Mick Foley at
Oh my
that at
gosh.
that Royal Rumble match. What was it, 19? One's enough. 19? Yeesh. And then, the one that I always think about was back in the ECW days, with Tommy Dreamer and Raven.
Yes.
Raven's handcuffed to the cage, and here comes Tommy Dreamer, and boom, and he just dents this chair on his head, and of course Raven in the Jesus Christ pose, all of a sudden he just does this slumping over thing. Those are painful to all that makes me shudder now. I'm like, I don't need to see another unprotected chair shot. I don't need to see a chair shot to the head. I don't need to see another diving headbutt. I don't care I don't even care if it's a wata, wata. I don't even want to see that, because that's still unprotected to Devon.
That's right.
When he would do those diving headbutts off the top rope.
Yep.
That's just, no, you don't need the diving headbutt anymore. Let's get away from that. And maybe, okay, the pile driver, that's another good one. I'm kind of glad they don't do, even the tombstone, that's, Mark Calloway knew how to protect the wrestler enough to where he wasn't going to injure somebody,
Exactly.
with the tombstone. So that's why they probably let him continue to do it. But man, that just too many people just getting hurt with that kind of stuff. And that's just, it's just risks that you don't need to take. And it's stuff you don't need to see anymore. Even in the extreme stuff, I don't even know how. I don't know if GC, like the Game Changer Wrestling or any of those, or CZW and any of those guys, I don't know how much of the head chair shots they do, or I don't know if they get it. I know when I saw Game Changer Wrestling, I didn't really see anything like that. I think the only thing I kept seeing on the head was like the skewers, but I don't remember seeing any like just blatant headshots, and stuff like that. I think you got to take care of your wrestlers. You got to take care of your performers, and you can't do that if you're getting these unprotected headshots. Whether, like I said, whether it's the diving headbutt or the fly or the chairs to the head. So, but there you go. So there's our little soapbox. So anyway, so yeah, heavy season, but a strong season was one we definitely wanted to talk every episode about. I can tell you right now, we're not going to do this with season 3. We're only going to hit a couple highlights on season 3. There's a certain ones that we just don't feel that we need to talk about. So I will give you that little bit of a little spoiler, as Paul Heyman likes to say.
Yeah.
But anyway, so John, what you got coming up that we need to be on the lookout for you with?
Oh gosh, well, my friends are keeping me busy.
Sorry.
No, it's a labor of love. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be watching this Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope you enjoy it. Before that, tomorrow night, will be Monday, August 7th. Oh, well, you're already aired by the time you watch this. We're gonna be on the Contrarians with our friends Grant Arthur and Nick Esquire. We're going to review the new album by the legendary songwriter that is Ian Hunter. The album is called Defiance Part 1. It's going to be a live chat.
Okay.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. Wednesday.
Ian Hunter's really up there in age, though. Isn't he like 80 years old now?
He's 84.
84.
And he just put out this fantastic album.
Wow. I'm going to check this out.
Oh, check it out. It's fantastic. It is a fantastic release. He has made so many great albums since 2000. It's sick. I mean, he's got this long and fantastic solo career, and then look at the stuff he did with Mata Hoople before that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one of our finest songwriters.
Who doesn't get enough credit.
That's right.
Because I had no idea how many, you talk about how many stuff he's done since 2000. I wasn't even aware of that. So that's
Yes.
impressive.
Oh yes. Well, Defiance Part 1 is definitely a great one to start with.
Okay.
But I mean, you could go with Rants, you could go with When I'm President, you go with Shrunken Heads. He's made so many strong albums. But we're going to talk about that Monday night. And then at the same time, this show will be airing. I'll be on Grant's Rock Warehouse. I'm trying to remember. I think we're doing our we're doing a part of our one and done series. I don't know if this one's going to go live or not. We're going to talk about the Hugh Thrall album.
Right. Okay.
With Glenn Hughes and Pat Thrall, the only album they made in 1982. Thursday, August 10, also in Grant's Rock Warehouse. We're going to have a panel of us. It's going to be Ernesto Ramos, Byron Bolts, Grant Arthur, and I. I'm not sure if DC Toontime's going to be part of this too. We're going to talk about our top 5 blues tracks. Excuse me. And Friday, I believe we're filming a show. John and I will be part of this show. We're going to be doing with our friend Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation. We're going to talk about Alice Cooper's 1978 album, I believe it was From the Inside. So
I'm looking forward to that.
and
I love that. I really
Love that album. I really love that album. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. As far as anything that we just did a show last week with Grant on Grant's Rock Warehouse on Ted Nugent's Intensities in 10 Cities. That was a fun chat. I don't know if he's gotten any backlash in the comments on that album, but that was a fun topic. That was a lot of fun to talk about Uncle Ted. And boy, after that, I think I'm going to try to get on a Contrarians episodes in a couple of weeks talking about instrumentals. So I'm hoping to get on that one. But boy, I think I got something down the pike with Peter Kerr on Rock Daydream Nation later in August. So more on that as we get closer to it. I don't want to let that one out of the bag too quickly, but
right.
I don't want to steal his thunder. Folks, if you like Raven, the band Raven, we did a defense of The Pack is Back. I thought it was a lot of fun to do that. It was I love that album. I love Raven. The Gallagher brothers, those are the Gallagher brothers I prefer to listen to. So there you go. And that's pretty much really it. I really haven't been on anybody's other programs, or I don't have a lot on down the pike yet. So what you see with me and John here, this is mostly it. I can't even get the rockin' North and South rock and metal guys to. I got to work on them, because we got to get our schedules right, because we got to do something together too. So
absolutely,
because they're so much fun to do stuff with, and our schedules just have not been working out. So anybody who is a fan of that, I apologize for not having anything out there with them, but maybe I just need to do some solo stuff with some of those guys, and maybe that might work out. So but there you go. So with that being said, Dark Side of the Ring Season 2, Part 2. Let us know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Let's talk some wrestling, guys. You know us as music guys from the Wasp Wednesday and all the different stuff that you've seen us on. But then we're going to get in. After we do this little thing on Dark Side of the Ring, we're going to start talking about Armored Saint, and we've got a couple of other little ideas that will probably slide in for here and there. So like, share, subscribe. Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate the feedback you guys give us on these things. And, come back next week. Yeah, when the 5 count returns. And we're going to talk about the Dark Side of the Ring Season 3. So until then, for John the Music Nut, John Clouser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, make sure it's the 5 count. Not a 3 count, but the 5 count.
5.